All right, here we go again. Hopefully this time it's faster, bigger, stronger. Welcome everybody to Jan's opening clinic number 12. We haven't done one of those for a while, but I guess you guys know the format. You post a question in the news article which we published a day before, and I shall give my answer most of the time. I'm gonna try to say something useful, but once in a while, actually most of the time, I'm gonna be condescending and saying, nah, that's not a good idea, play the main lines. Or if you ask about a main line, saying, how am I supposed to know? Switch on your engine. I've given a speech before, but I'm gonna do it all over again. So it's gonna be a fun show for all of us. Since we are on a tight schedule here, I'm gonna jump right into the action. Here we go with question number 1. Anybody? Maybe not question number 1. Maybe no questions today. Maybe it's just gonna be me sitting here. What fresh trouble is this? I thought I fixed everything, but there's new issues. So it might just be me sitting here watching this beautiful screen. Because if I can't switch it, then we're all screwed. It's not you, it's me. What's going on? Frozen? Yep. Well, third time's a charm, as they say. Not sure what is going on. I honestly do not know. Here we go. But yeah, performance issues. What is this? That's probably engine stuff. Normally the computer is able to deal with an engine, but maybe not today. So, question number 1, which I already answered during my first take, but I forgot my answer. So let's get at it again. Grandmaster Passion is asking, how old does an old opening idea have to be before people start forgetting it? I don't know. My search is normally like 5 years in the past, so if anything's older than 5 years, it's not on my radar. But on the highest level, people have opening files that cover a lot of stuff, and normally they're not like, oh, this is trendy and so on. They tend to be pretty complete, so I'm not sure this forgetting an idea is so much an issue. It's more of, like lines going out of fashion and coming back into fashion. But I'm not so sure if age is really a major factor when it comes to opening ideas. Then again, you never know. Maybe it pays off to study some games from the 60s and bring it all back. SK3 is saying, hello Jan, white top player does not often play Pirc or Modern Defense, and if I play it, what should I do to avoid getting crushed? Thank you very much. Well, not play it would be a good start, because top player don't do it, and top players, they normally know their stuff. But let's get to it. I don't think the Pirc or Modern is particularly bad. Gotta differentiate a little bit between those two. Come on, program. This is really annoying. And I know you guys love shows where I'm just complaining about tech stuff, but it takes me like 5 minutes to switch windows, which might slow down the show quite a bit. Anyway, Pirc or Modern. The Pirc, which I never know how to pronounce. I guess it's Pirc, but there are advocates for all kinds of pronunciations. I think is a sort of alright opening. At the top level, I guess they think white is a bit better after f4, bishop g7. And now either this stuff, which for example Kayakin likes to play, where I guess white is slightly better. That's certainly a playable line for black. Some weird Benoni-esque position. Or these lines after knight f3, either c5 or castles here. I have a feeling white is a bit better in all those, but it's not unplayable. While if you go for, let's say, the Modern with g6, okay, you gotta cover wider scope. White can play all these c4 systems, and after knight c3, bishop g7, there's all kinds of tempting systems based on bishop e3, queen d2. So I'm a little, less comfortable there. But of course it leads to dynamic play, and it's hard to force a draw or play a lot of theoretical moves. So it's a line some people choose to play for a win against lower rated opponents. I've never been a big subscriber because I believe in sort of fighting for the center, and you don't really do that all that much in the Pirc and Modern, but it's not terrible by any stretch. I've wasted a lot of my youth though playing the Pirc and Modern. When I was like 14, 15, 16, I played it every game, and I regret it. I wish I would have played the Sicilian or E4, E5 or something normal to increase my chess understanding, but I did not do such a thing. Back to the other window, which once again, this is gonna take a while, and it's gonna be a lot of whining on my part every time I try to switch windows. This hasn't happened before. That's the beauty of it. Like, it's always fresh problems. It's not the same old problems, but it's something fresh. Here we go. Now, since I clicked 8,000 times now, it's all over the place. David02 is saying, Jan, can you briefly show the Kramnik Repertoire to 1 knight f3? I wish I knew the Kramnik Repertoire to 1 knight f3, but I really don't. I did notice that Kramnik started doing it a lot more recently, or not so much recently. Very recently he's been playing all kinds of things. He's been playing e4. But I guess Kramnik was getting tired of the main lines, and since he's a great Catalan player, for him it's kind of natural to start with knight f3, d5, g3, when often the game can transpose into some kind of Catalan if white so chooses and if black plays some normal setup like this. You can go d4, and Kramnik tends to feel quite at home in all those things while avoiding some Catalan lines with bishop b4 check, for example. But of course you gotta be ready if you play this for all sorts of things. Bishop g4, it looks like Kramnik doesn't mind playing these positions, even with these slow plans, d3, followed by castles, queen e1, e4, and so on. Not my cup of tea, but certainly playable. And a lot of discussions at the highest level nowadays are based around g6, which is a clever move order, intending to play bishop g7, then follow up with e5 if possible. When, yeah, I'm sure you can find a lot of Kramnik games here where he tries every move known to man, but I don't know what he's up to with 1 knight f3. I think it's a bit of fatigue of all the main lines, so he started looking for some new territory with his knight f3, g3, where people might not be as booked up as in, whatever, the Grunfeld. But honestly, he hasn't shared his repertoire with me, so not sure. But in general, yeah, let's go knight f3, g3, bishop g2, and then be flexible about what to do next. I'm not sure how much that helped, but I honestly don't know. Let's go back. Yeah, Kramnik does all kinds of things. He does a bit of 2 e3, a bit of London system, a bit of 1 e4. As mentioned, he's been a bit all over the place just trying to get fresh positions. But I always like to watch out for Kramnik games, because he always has ideas. It's not like he's just playing something and then doesn't know what he's doing. Robin Nilsson, 94, is saying, Hey Jan, do you have a good system with white to get an advantage against the Kan Sicilian? And what do you think of the Maroczy system with 5c4? The Kan seems like an opening that is doing well for black, so do you know why not so many play it? Thanks for the answer, and that you continue to make awesome shows for us. Thank you so much. I'm gonna keep up the awesomeness by trying to switch windows again, which is gonna take a while, but we're gonna get used to it eventually. So, the Kan, I disagree with your assumption that it's doing well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It took a serious hit when it comes to popularity in this World Championship match, Carlson against Anand, where Carlson played the c4 line, which I believe nowadays is what people are afraid of, and got a very nice position against Anand. Anand played bishop b4, but this line with queen d3 looks like a bit of a funny move, but it turns out it's pretty unpleasant. In that game, I think, was this strange ending, takes e5, and this is just better for white with the king weak and the dark squares weak, so we're not gonna see much of that. But yeah, I have a feeling this is a problem for black. Bishop b4 used to be the principal reply, now it seems like they've switched to queen c7, but here white can just go a3, stopping bishop b4, and you end up with some hedgehog position which of course is playable for black, but most people, me included, would take white here. Whatever, b6, bishop e3, bishop b7, f3. You get this stuff, which, yeah, as mentioned, playable, but I'd take white with the space advantage and the potential to open files on the queen side. It requires some care, and it's playable for black. You don't have to know a lot of theory, just put your piece somewhere. Rook normally goes to e8, but whatever. But I take white, and it's my understanding that this is the problem currently with the Kan. If you want to play with white, you have to be booked up here. There's other moves instead of knight c6, like d5 or castles. But I don't think any of them are supposed to fully equalize. So I'm not that surprised that the Kan has taken a back seat to the Taimanov, for example, knight c6, which fights a bit more for the center. Hope that helped at all. But yeah, I have a feeling this c4 system is where the money's at currently. Seeing some questions posed in the chat, I won't be able to answer those. I got my hands full with however many were the 60 posted in the news article. So if you want me to answer your question, check out our news site once in a while and post your questions in advance to the show. What is this? What fresh hell is this? Here we are. Bill 1226 is saying, Jan, thank you for your fantastic commentary and your good sense of humor. That makes the shows entertaining. Keep the praise coming, that's always appreciated. When opening as black with the triangle system, most authors, including Sherbakov, Krasenko and even Sopiko on Chess24, recommend the stonewall versus the slow white tries such as knight f3, e3. The other alternative is for knight f6 with the Maron anti-Maron. Clearly the Maron anti-Maron is more theory intensive, but it also may offer black a more flexible position on the stonewall. Could you comment on the relative merits of these alternatives, stonewall versus Maron, and which do you believe offers better winning chances for black? Thanks. I shall try. Even though, yeah, this winning chances topic I'm always a bit confused by, because I never see that many games where like both sides just play perfectly, but there was just nothing you could do. I chose the wrong opening. I didn't generate any winning chances with black. What's going on now? I'm so confused. I'm dazed and confused. Stunned. So, the question was about the triangle, where Sopiko recently did a video series on Chess24. And the way I understood it, it's about this position after e3. There's some differences if white goes knight c3 and then e3, but I understood it's with knight f3 and e3. For starters, I don't play this move order, but yeah, I don't wanna... I'll just say what I do. If they go knight f3, I go knight f6, and then after knight c3, I go c6. The point is after knight f3, c6, if you wanna play the Maron, anti-Maron, whatever, knight f6, white is by no means forced to play knight c3 here. One line that annoys me is the move b3, so I try not to do this, even though it's not the end of the world, but I normally don't want to get this position. So for the stonewall approach, I believe it's quite playable. I don't do it, or I don't like it, but it's more a matter of taste than anything. I don't like these long-term weaknesses, and yeah, I'm not booked up to the eyeballs here. But once again, with the knight on b1, I thought a sensible plan was to play b3, intending to play bishop a3, then queen e7. They do something like this, queen c1, and bishop a3 next move, when, to my mind, white is a little better, but I'm sure experts would argue that, and probably successfully. So, to answer the question, in this position, what gives better winning chances? I don't know. I don't like either is my problem. Knight f6, b3, I'm not a fan, and f5, this stuff I just showed. I'm also not a huge fan, but I'd probably go... I don't know, they both offer fine winning chances if you're the better player. I'd go knight f6 if I had to make a move here, but it's more a question of taste than anything. Certainly nothing particularly wrong with f5, especially in the move order with knight c3, c6, e3, where, well, Here I like the f5 lines better. But once again, matter of taste and all that stuff. That looks weird. Bipolinen. Bipolinen? I don't know how to pronounce it. Says, hi Jan, what do you think about the Janisch Gambit? e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5. Thanks. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's one of the few gambits out there that I have a healthy amount of respect for. I've thought playing it myself, but I couldn't really make friends with it. I believe it's playable. Like, there were some lines that I didn't find too inspiring. Like after knight f6, queen e2 is the main line, but even takes, queen e2. Black has to sacrifice a pawn. The main move is bishop e7, and he tends to get enough compensation, but he still has to make accurate moves to survive, which is not a problem really, theoretically speaking, but it's not that much fun, I thought. And the main line nowadays seems to be d3, takes, knight f6, and now they try all kinds of funky things. Normally a castle, bishop c5, queen d3 or whatnot, where it looks like white has a small opening advantage, but nothing out of the ordinary, so it's certainly a very playable opening position and a very playable opening. I don't mind it. Like, yes, I've toyed with the idea of playing it myself, but I normally decide against it. But once again, it's more matter of taste thingy than any particularly objective reasons. So, knock yourself out. Go Janisch if you feel like it. We're gonna have a lot worse gambits suggested later in the show. The Janisch, yeah, I don't think is terrible at all. Can't do any switching. Poor Pepe, because of my inability to switch screens here. Sorry for this looking messy all the time. I think I'm gonna take like 5 hours today. Yoshi Deluxe is from the hood. He says, yo Jan, what up? I was chilling like a villain when suddenly the following crossed my mind. In the Ruy Lopez exchange variation, usually black gains the bishop pair at the cost of a weakened pawn structure. Then again, there are lines in which black gives up the bishop pair as well, but is able to provoke e4, e5, thus remaining with quite a nice light squared bishop. I get that. However, there is this fashionable line. Here, more often than not, queen straight off quickly, there's no bishop pair, and white still controls the light squares in the center. Why is this still considered dead equal? Can't white just keep it calm and win an endgame 50 moves ahead? Thanks, bro. Very street. No, I think this line is fine for black. Not sure I'll be able to explain, but I shall try. I shall make an honest effort to explain. Let's put it on the board. e4. Not d6, let's go e5 this time. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6. Takes. Castles, queen f6. This is a move I recommended on one of my old DVDs. So yeah, I don't mind this line. Knight d4, bishop e7. I actually believe bishop e3 is a more critical move here than bishop takes e7. Because even though black gives up the two bishops here, he still has a bishop. And it turns out that this light square bishop, very often, even though there's double pawns, is a very decent match for a knight. Like theory is something like knight b3 takes, whatever, rook takes, b6, and black follows up with reasonably simple moves. Long castles, c5, go f5, and he tends to be fine. For example, I think this is some old Carlson game. ft1, c5, knight d5, takes. None of these moves are forced, but just to give you an idea. Something like this, where it looks like white has reached his dream endgame with the black double pawns and the 3 versus 2 on the king side. But even here, white is not better, because his bishop is stronger than the knight, and even though the 4 versus 3 and the double pawns can't create passed pawns so easily, they do control a lot of ground, and them rolling is going to be a problem. So long story short, even if white gets this, he's not better at all here. You can play around a bit and try to win this with white. Won't be an easy task. Or, yeah, I think it's just dead equal, as you mentioned yourself. So it's a little weird to wrap your head around it, but I have a feeling these positions are just Just equal indeed, because the bishop overpowers the knight in many of those lines. Not sure, it's hard to explain in general terms, and I understand what you're saying, but it's similar to the Berlin, where it's not so much the bishop pair often, but just having this light square bishop with good prospects. Therefore, yeah, I think it's equal, and if you want to look for an edge with white, you might want to start looking at bishop e3, which is a bit more challenging. Wow, this went a lot faster. Is there hope for fast switches? I don't know. David, 2 A's, saying, "Hi Jan, I changed my first move with white from e4 to d4 a while ago. The positions I got from the opening were quite terrible at the beginning, but it's slowly getting better now. That's good to hear. I'm mainly playing the Catalan, but unfortunately the theory knowledge I have is very limited. Is anyone from Chess24 planning to make a video series on the Catalan from the white point of view? And could you recommend a good book on this topic? P.S. From your series, How to Build Your D4 Repertoire, I learned a lot, and I also like Robin's series on the King's Indian and the Taimanov very much. Glad to hear. Thanks, David. So let's answer the questions. I think Pepe Cuenca did a series on the Catalan. It's in Spanish. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. If he's done an ebook on it as well, where you can look it up. I guess it's only videos. So in English now, there's no plans. As for books, yeah, the latest I'm familiar with is this Avruch, whatever it's called. Avruch Repertoire book, part 1. He had an update, which is mainly about the Catalan. So I think that's the best source and the one I used for doing my series, which was from the black point of view. Else, yeah. And that's all I'm aware of. I'm not sure if we're gonna do it in the future. For now, there is the Spanish thing. Even if you don't understand Spanish, you can just scroll to the end of the video and click through the lines. But yeah, I'm not a big Catalan guy, which is strange. Should be right in my wheelhouse. But I don't play much with white. However, you can watch my video series from the black side, of course, and you will learn some things. Probably not a lot. And Mr. Mac is saying, Jan, what strategic differences, ideas are between the standard Slav for dc4 and the Chebanenko Slav for a6? I hear the latter is more passive. It's true, thanks. I wouldn't necessarily say more passive. But what would I say? I would say something. That's my Skype. Probably should show that. Come on, let's switch. I can operate in this window, I guess, if I want to avoid all the switching. Problem is just it looks very, very broken then. Here we go. That was lightning fast. Who broke the system this time? I think it was probably me. That's the problem. Slav. a6 or dc4. The thing is, they're very different openings. The thing with a6 is so much depends on white's next move. It's going to lead to completely different type of games. After, let's say, c5, whether you choose knight bd7 or bishop f5, you get a totally different game than after a4. When e6, white can play g3 or bishop g5, and the position can be more similar to queen's gambits or Catalans, while cd5 is yet another very different story with an exchange Slav where black is committed to a6. And I could continue. a6, e3 is another big line where after b5, white goes b3 or c5. Well, bishop f5 or e6 are also playable moves, and so on and so forth. So long story short, if you play a6, you gotta be ready to play many different types of positions. They're all quite strategic in nature. While dc4, even though it's the main line, it's a bit more limited. After a4, you can either go e6 Svidler style, or you choose the main line bishop f5, e3, e6. Its play tends to be quite similar. We have a question about it later, bishop c4, bishop b4. Structure is fixed, and then you choose your line after knight e5, be it knight bd7 or e6. So the battleground is sort of more limited after dc4, while with a6, white can choose the nature of the game with his next move. CD, C5, A4, E3, G3. Many options. Queen C2, H3, you name it. And it leads to all kinds of different games. Let's go full screen so you guys can't notice that it takes me hours to switch to this shot. Maybe you will notice because I mention it every time I'm trying to do it. Maybe you won't. Or I could talk. Got a chess 24 mug yet? I hear those are in high demand. Because you can drink coffee out of them and it has the chess 24 logo on them. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And chessfan123. I wanted that username, but it was taken already, so I went with Jan. Another Slav question. Says, hey Jan, after the moves 1, d4, d5, c4, c6, I play 3 knight c3. Nothing wrong with that. After 3 e6, I have a difficult choice to make. 4 knight c3 or 4 e3. I'm guessing it means 4 knight f3. I don't want to allow the sharp lines with 4 e4. You should though. Knight c3 allows black to enter the note-to-bone variation, and after e3, black reaches a convenient kind of stone wall, in which I can't go for the natural development bishop f4, e3 or b3, bishop a3. All true. What do you think? Which move, knight c3 or e3, offers white the best chances for an opening advantage? Thanks, your show is always quite interesting and entertaining. Thank you so much, even though I'm working very hard to change that today. Where do we go? Maybe here. So let me wrap my head around this question. Not literally. This position. I do believe that the critical test is the move e4, but you've ruled that one out. So yeah, there's pros and cons. Then knight f3 is the more mainliney move. It's more challenging, but you have to live with the note-to-bone, which I don't think white should be particularly scared of it objectively, but it's such a particular position. I don't even know how to get there. That normally out of laziness or trying to avoid running into specialists, I don't go here all that much, even though I do believe that objectively, I'm not that in tune with the latest developments, I do believe that objectively after, I think they go knight d2, white is supposed to be a little better here. So that's my answer objectively. I believe this is the best. Of course, you also have to deal with knight f3, knight f6, and have something against the semi-Slav. Of course, there's nothing wrong with e3, and it's a more practical move. You gotta live with these stone walls, which, as I mentioned like a couple minutes ago, I like them better here than with the knight on f3 and the other one on b1, because there you have the b3 bishop a3 plan. But still, not the end of the world, and you can try to make a virtue out of it by going knight bishop d3, knight e2, f3, that kind of stuff, even though I'm not sure white is better here. So yeah, e3 is the safer move. You don't have to know a lot of theory. But knight f3 is more challenging, I would say. Jerexon. Hi Jan, where do you recommend starting to build one's d4 repertoire? I've seen your magnificently fabulous series on that topic. Thank you so much. But it's mainly study that, know that. Yeah, that's how I roll. And I just don't know what to read or where to study it, as there are not many opening series from the very beginning on chess 24. Could you recommend some literature on d4 positions? I prefer understanding the positions to concrete lines, so it may be more general. Thanks a lot. I wish I knew. Like, this always sounds detached, or maybe it is. I honestly don't read that many chess books. So I've mentioned the Avro book earlier. Those I read, those I thought were fine on d4 stuff. I'm sure there's lots of books out there. I honestly, don't read a lot of chess books, so I'm not up to date with what's good out there and what's not. For me, I mainly follow theory and then create my own files and update them. I understand that can be a little hard to do if you don't know where to begin. Thing is, no one, or at least with white, I don't know anybody that has a complete d4 repertoire. It's more like, oh, this could be an interesting line to play against the Grunfeld, or oh, this opponent plays the King's Indian. I'm gonna have to prepare for that. Let's click through some new games. Now on Chess24 we've greatly expanded all these funky database functions. So I recommend you try using that and then you start saving your analysis over there. Just type in a position after d4, d5, c4, c6 and see what's new. Maybe go a little further than c4, c6, whatever. Knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, dc4, and what's to your liking, then save the results of your work. So, yeah, I understand that's not a very satisfying answer, but I'm so long away from reading books and trying to build a repertoire that I'm honestly not a good source there. Like for me, it's much more, as I've mentioned in this series, this opponent plays a Grunfeld, I don't know what to do, so I'm gonna go one knight f3 or one c4 to move order him out of it and try to go for that kind of practical approach. I believe with black it makes sense to try to build a complete repertoire. With white I find it very hard to do, because if you always do the same you're gonna be too predictable. Therefore I try to be flexible and adjust to the opponent, and I mainly prepare with engines and databases. Like the correspondence database is a tip I always like to give, because you get all these correspondence guys that spend a lot of time analyzing their openings, so they're sometimes useful. But yeah, it's a long time since I've read like a repertoire book for white on d4. So yeah, sorry, I understand it's not the answer you're looking for, but just work. Choose a top player whose style you like, whatever, live on Aronian, see what he's been up to against the big openings and try to study them using whatever sources you can get. I mainly use databases and engines, but there's nothing wrong with getting a book as long as you don't believe everything they're saying. Same for our video series. Unless it's mine, then you can take it for face value and try to see if you like it or not. There's no fixed repertoire for either d4 or e4 that will give you a small plus against anything. It keeps evolving. Long speech, no advice. That's how I roll. Dr. Boki saying, "Hi Jan, everybody in the top seems to play the Italian with 7a4. I've noticed that. What do you think is the best setup for black?" Thanks. What do I think is the best setup for black? It's a fair question. It's one of these things that are on the to-do list and then you think, nah, I should really worry more about the Ruy Lopez than studying the Italian with a4. Having said that, it has become extremely popular at the top level, therefore it makes sense to pay attention. Of course, there's a lot of move order subtleties here. If you want to start with castles, you allow bishop g5, but you keep the option open of going a5, for example. I normally go a6 as early as possible, and here after a4, I have some sympathy for this plan to reshuffle my knight to g6 as quickly as possible. There were some recent games, of course, white can play all kinds of moves here, h3, rook e1, bishop g5, knight a3, you name it. But in the recent games I've seen, I thought black was doing quite alright. Rook e1 and immediately knight e7, this is a game, what is it, Kramnik, Aronian? Yeah, I think Kramnik, Aronian, something like this. d4, castles, h3, knight g6. And I always have a feeling, once this knight makes it to g6, things can't be too bad. So I believe that's what I would currently do, but I reserve the right to change my opinion, like every other day. Bishop g5 is not that effective here yet because of h6, so the other move they typically play after this a4 is to knight a3 in order to go knight c2 and bishop e3, and once again I quite like this maneuver, knight e7. There was a game, what was it, Anand Giri, knight e7, bishop g5, c6, where Giri was doing absolutely fine, so bishop g5 really didn't do much. And yeah, I would lean towards this plan to not hurry with castles, but go bishop a7, get out of the way, and then go knight e7, knight g6. But this line is gonna evolve. It looks like they're gonna keep going there, so I'm sure there's gonna be more theory in the future. For now, that's what I would probably do. Danger More 5 is saying, "Hi Jan, I've heard a few GMs talk about repeating lines in interviews. Can you tell us how it is usually done? Computer, board, memory, and whether you think it is useful. Yeah, when GMs say that, they're normally referring to preparation before the game. 95% of guys do this on their computer sometimes, and I believe it makes some sense, but who has the time? Some people bring a board to tournaments and have a helper tell them the lines or try to find their moves over the board, but 95% or 90% of the time it's clicking through an opening file which you have created in advance. It's what I was talking about earlier. Most top players, or even I, have their files with saved analysis of particular variations you expect your opponent to play, and repeating lines means clicking through them before the game, mainly trying to memorize them, not so much trying to find brilliant novelties, but trying to remember whatever your files say. Some guys have since files can get quite big, have like a summary of their big file and they repeat that before the game. Because yeah, there can be too much information out there to fit into your little head. But it's like learning for a test at school where you haven't paid attention like for half a year. And then you just try to throw as much information as possible into your short-term memory so you can hopefully still know it in 2 hours when the game is. And then you can clear it again and fill it with football scores. Nicolas Kuhn, number 5, is asking about, is a Chigorin fan apparently. Hey Jan, in the Chigorin after knight c3, dc4, d5. By far the most popular reply by black is knight e5. There is, however, the possibility of knight a5, when after the critical queen a4, c6, b4, b5, and so on, very interesting endgame arises. How would you evaluate this piece sacrifice, keeping in mind that the usual goal for black in this position is to get an unclear double-edged position? And if you don't think it's playable, how would you react after knight e5, f4? So I have to keep in mind that the goal is to reach an unclear double-edged position. But that's not going to change my evaluation of it, I guess. So let's look at it. I know more about the Chigorin than I probably should. Actually, I might even have played it like once or twice. I don't think it's a great opening, but it's not losing either. It's one of those borderline openings. Yeah, knight c3, dc4, d5. I think knight f3 is more critical, but anyway, d5, knight a5. Let's first answer the question. I don't think this is enough compensation. I understand the position looks kind of sexy and you might be tempted to play it because you have all these nice pawns, but it's only 2 pawns for a piece. And after e4, e6, I don't know. I'm sure my file, if I were to repeat it, would give some clever move like knight e2, and I believe if white is accurate here, the piece should prevail in the end. There's too many squares to use to fight against these guys. And this a2 pawn plays a very useful role. If this were a pass pawn, it would be different. So, no, I don't think this line is good for black. And therefore, I would go knight e5 indeed. When the question was what to do after f4. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would go knight g4. I'm not all that up to date here. It's some weird lines, right? e4, e5, knight f3, bishop c5, bishop c4, ef4, something like this. Which is messy, but I thought it was playable for black. So that's where I would go. I'm not promising equality or anything, but yeah, I think this is a better try than the knight a5 stuff. Where do we go? Let's go back here. The Chigorin. I should play the Chigorin more in Banterblitz, I'm told. Yeah, I could do it once. As I said, I don't hate it. Don't love it either. But it's not a terrible line. Sorry for the slurping, is that a word? What's the word? I should know such stuff. But I do not. Loud table soccer noises coming from outside. No respect for the opening clinic in this office. Come on, let's do this. Nervous clicking. Let's read the chat. CPU usage. Why would there be high CPU usage? Ah, that could have been a problem. Nah, probably not. So, back to business. Slavov is saying, hello Jan. You mentioned a few times that you prefer to avoid Benko more than Benoni by playing knight f3 and by this switching to anti-Benoni lines in symmetrical English. Not sure I read that right. Anyway, d4, knight f6, c4, c5, knight f3, cd, knight d4. Yep, I do that a lot. What are main option for black here? Is there something else beside b6 and e5? Yes, there is. Thanks for your work here in chess24.com, and please continue with your series about white repertoire after d4. White repertoire or black repertoire? So many series. But yeah, I shall. Thanks, Slavov. Let's do this. So, to answer the question, d4, knight f6, move order, doesn't matter. c4, c5, knight f3, cd, knight d4. I've mentioned this many times, and my belief hasn't changed. I believe the best line for black here is to play knight c6, when g3 is not so great because of e5 as far as I know. So normally they play knight c3, and after e6, the theory battles begin currently. The fashionable stuff is g3, queen b6, and either knight b3 or knight db5. But I believe black is fine in all these lines, so that's what he should do. You can also start with e6 instead of knight c6, but that allows g3. So I feel that's the best line. I'm always very happy to see either b6 or e5 or g6 here. Knight c6 and e6 is where the money's at. Rosebuster is saying, I don't have a question, I just want to say hi. Hi Rosebuster. Summerbird. Hi Jan. In the Norway Chess Tournament 2016, Carlson with the white pieces played against Kramnik in round number 7. Kramnik decided to play a line against 1d4. You often recommend it as very solid, although black has to accept a double pawn on the f-file. But Carlson surprised Kramnik with knight e2 and crushed him easily. Do you think this move is the ultimate refutation of that line? If not, how should black react? Thanks. Ultimate refutation is strong, but it's a problem. I'll put it on the board if I manage to get a board. Here we are. And yeah, it's sort of messed with my plans, because I wanted to recommend this line. Now, let's first bring it up. In part 3 of my Repertoire series, but this Carlson game bothered me a bit. I've tried to fix it, but it's not so easy. This bishop f5 is a trendy line, and people had stopped more or less going e3 because they thought everything was fine here. But Magnus Carlsen, famous for not knowing any theory, of course, that's not true at all, but put a serious blow to this line with his idea knight h4 and then this quick maneuver knight e2, knight g3. There's many subtleties here which I won't get into here so much. Like, for example, you go bishop e7, that's where Kramnik played, because after knight b6 people are worried about f4. When f5 is a little ugly, so is h6 to allow f5. So that's why you start with bishop e7. But now white is in time to do this knight e2, knight g3. Idea of our friend Jon Ludwig Hammer. And yeah, I've worked a bit on this. Black is a little worse, and I wasn't comfortable recommending it for black anymore. Like, you can play better than Kramnik did. Kramnik blundered a couple moves later here after bishop b4, king d1, knight b6, knight g3. He went for knight a4, which makes no sense because he missed that after knight f5 he's not in time to take on b2. But black is a little worse. I didn't enjoy the position. So yeah, it's messed with my plans because now I'm stuck for a repertoire recommendation. After c4, e6, knight c3, might have to go back all the way to the Nimzo. I was trying to sort of cheat and recommend this d5 stuff, which a lot of guys, including Kramnik, I thought considered to be very solid, but it's back to the drawing board. I'm gonna study it a bit more and hopefully come up with something. But for now, yeah, it's a problem. I have some ideas which I'm gonna share with you no matter what I end up recommending. But nothing that fully satisfied me. So kudos to to Carlson and Hammer for coming up with this 92, knight g3. Yeah, it's a problem repertoire-wise for me. And I'm sure for many others as well. And I haven't managed to fix it yet. Who's next? Ice Beer saying, "Hi Jan, I'm a big fan of the Slav. Why wouldn't you be? The following mainline is very drawish and does not give black much to hope for, in my opinion. Long line, e4. Against lower rated players, a draw is of course not sufficient. How many lower rated players go for this position and then spit out the drawing lines? Anyway, what do you think of this attempt? Bishop c3, bc, knight e4, bishop a3, queen c7, rook fc1, queen f4. Nice try or a losing attempt?" Yeah, probably both. It's considered to be a little risky and rightly so. Oops, let's go c6. Here we are. This is one of the Slav main lines. Yeah, the main move, as I'm sure you know, is castles here. And play continues. Whatever. Bishop d3, bishop h5, e5, knight d5. This kind of stuff where, once again, I disagree that these positions are overly drawish. But I understand if you don't like them. And yeah, this bishop c3, as I said, it's considered to be too risky. For good reason, because it's hard to castle kingside. And your king is not going to be particularly happy on the queen side. But queen c7, okay, as other moves here. Rook fc1 is not forced, but let's say rook fc1. Queen f4. In general, if you prepare such things well, you can get away with them. I don't think black is losing here. It's just, I'd be worried because the king is too weak. Instead of queen f4, probably the best is c5, but then the problem is once again there's forced lines which lead to slightly better positions for white. So by all means, check it, and nowadays if you check stuff with the computer, you can get away with many things. Yeah, this position looks scary, so I'm not sure I would go here, but I absolutely think it's possible to try stuff like that, especially if you prepare it. As for what to do here, I don't really have a clue, but yeah, I'd be worried after whatever. Queen b2, I don't know, I guess the idea is b6, but what do you ever do with the king? So yeah, while I would like this particular position, in general I think that's the right approach. Prepare some sharper alternatives if you feel like the main line doesn't suit you for whatever reason, and go with them. Robin Hood 58 is saying, "Hello Jan. I have had many people say not to play the Latvian, but still play it, as I like the unbalanced play. He doesn't listen, so now you want me to tell you not to play it, and then again you won't listen. What is your opinion about it? And have you a forced line that shows that the Latvian is not to be played?" My opinion about it is I'm sure it's a pretty bad opening. It just doesn't look logical. We've talked about this. What's the other thing? I don't even know what's called. The Schliemann or whatever earlier. Which I thought was okay. But the Latvian, it's e4, e5, knight f3, f5. Doesn't make sense. Just look at the move. But yeah, lines. I'm not an e4 player, so my theoretical knowledge is a bit limited here. But after knight takes e5, you go queen f6, right? That's what these Latvian players do. d4, d6, knight c4, f takes e, knight c3. Just looking at this position, like white is the lead in development, this pawn is weak. It looks bad, doesn't it? I'm not sure what you're supposed to do here. Queen g6, I believe f3, and white just opens the position as a huge lead in development. So I'm sure there's some forums where they discuss the virtues of whatever, queen f7, knight e3, knight f6, bishop c4. How lost are we here? Is it only 0-80 or is it +1? That I don't know. But yeah, many people told you not to play it. I'll also tell you not to play it. But if it makes you happy, if your results are good, go with it. If you want an objective evaluation of the Latvian, I've never spent more than 8 minutes on it, but I'm sure you can switch on any strong engine of your choice and it will show you what's wrong with it. This, I believe, is one of the lines, but yeah, honestly, I don't know theory. I'm sure knight c4 is good as well. But knight takes e5 followed by d4 looks fairly natural to me. So, not a big Latvian fan. But what did you expect? I don't even like the King's Gambit, so playing the King's Gambit a tempo down really doesn't strike me as healthy. King of Lego people, what's up? Hi Jan, I'm trying to learn to play Dragon, and I very often reach this position after 8 moves. Yep, that is the main position of the Dragon. I know how the line goes. Here, white either castles long or goes bishop c4. What are good continuations for black, or typical plans in this position? I believe I would have to spend more than 2 minutes on giving a seminar on the main lines of the Dragons. I know what to do with white, but many times I get stuck here as black. I hear ya. Let's go to the Dragon. Dragon is an opening I sometimes play, which I've studied quite a bit. I don't think it's as good as like main openings like the Najdorf or the main e4, e5 lines. I still have a bit of a passion for it. But yeah, this position you're mentioning, the problem is so much depends on white's next move. Like, play is gonna be completely different after long castles, when the main move is d5. And once again, there's many sub-branches, king b1, queen e1, or e takes d5, all leading to very different positions. Thing is, after long castles, you're normally not in time to play the standard Dragon plan, because this bishop doesn't have to move very often to capture a knight on c4. So d5 is the main line. Some people try knight takes d4, but I don't like it. And yeah, that's one big reason I'm not a big Dragoneer. Another strong move I believe is g4. Same reasoning here. Trendy move is a very weird looking move, the move bishop to e6. But once again, black struggles a bit in these lines. And the main lines after bishop c4, here I have some sympathy for takes and bishop e6. The main lines are this stuff. I'm not sure about the move order. Guess they do something like this. And yeah, theory keeps changing. My understanding is that white is a little bit better. But you could argue about that. So, long story short, the Dragon is an interesting opening. I wouldn't mind getting it to work. But every time I try, there's too many problems. I'll certainly keep doing it once in a while as a quote-unquote surprise weapon. But I don't really like it. What's going on? GM Donald Trump in the chat. He's not premium. So yeah, sorry, King of Lego people. There's no time to go through all the Dragon lines. It's playable. Silver Blue is saying, hello Jan, do you have any suggestions for a system for black against one f4? People have the strangest worries. How often do you face one f4? I never do. In particular against a player who's stronger, but does not like very tactical positions. Thanks in advance and keep up the good work. Looks like he has a foe there in his chess club who's a big f4 dude. Honestly, yeah, we're back to the condescending part. I've never spent a minute worrying about one f4 because it's not such a logical move. You're not fighting for the center all that much or helping development. So what would I do? I really don't know. I'd probably go d5 and then if it's an f4 dude, he probably has more than one game and there's gonna be some indication if he wants to follow up with e3 or with g3. If they're g3 guys, I would just play whatever it's called. This stuff reversed, where the extra tempo doesn't really matter all that much. This is totally fine for black. And against e3 guys, I learned this system in my childhood, which I'm not sure is great, but was sort of easy to play. You hope they do something like this, and then you go e5, and you want to go queen c7, bishop d6, and checkmate them. I'm not sure that's best, but yeah, you can always play g6, bishop g7 castles, and you're never gonna be worse out of the opening. So I don't think f4 is a big problem. And I'm guessing the answer you want to hear is go e5, because that's leading to more tactical play. But most f4 players I know, and I don't know many, the only line they're gonna know anything about is f4, e5, and f takes e5 I believe is better for white. So don't go e5, play any other sensible move, be it d5, g6, b6, and you're gonna be fine. Maybe not b6, even b6. Le Frog, I keep mispronouncing that. I've been informed it's some whiskey, but I still don't know how to pronounce it. Le Frog. Hi Jan, I've recently started playing the 4f3 Nimzo. I've been looking for books on it, but most books don't even have a chapter on it. What have you been reading? Like The Hobbit? I've been getting pretty good results since few people in my rating category 1800 till 2000 seem to have a good grasp of it. Probably not a good grasp. Few people have a good grasp. Got it. My question is twofold. Why is it regarded with such disdain by most good players? And if it is such a bad opening, what exactly is the refutation? Any insights would be appreciated. Keep up the good work for Chess24. Love your stuff. Thank you so much. But who told you that? f4 nowadays is almost the main line against the Nimzo. It's as respected a main line as any. So I'm not sure who regards it with disdain. You see it in super tournaments all the time. A lot of strong players are playing it. So absolutely nothing wrong with it. Just leads to very sharp play after c5, d5. There's these lines with b5. There's these lines like Aronian played with takes, castles, and d6. There's the old main lines with d5, a3, takes, and c5, which are a bit unpopular. I'm not quite sure why. I always thought this was quite solid for black, but they don't go here much anymore. And there is a line which I've played a bit. Not sure it's probably the worst choice, but even this is quite decent. Castles, when the critical move seems to be a3, and you get some weird positions like this after knight h5 or knight to e8, where white is the center, but these double pawns. So it's a very sharp position. But no, there's zero wrong with 4f3. It's one of the most popular and dangerous systems out there. And as you mentioned, it leads to kind of non-standard positions. So by all means, keep doing it. As for books, as usual, I don't know. But yeah, check Top Players Games. It's all over the place. Let's do the good old switcheroo again. Sorry, this looks broken all the time. But so am I. A lot of broken news on this program. Christoph87 says, Hi Jan, greetings from Argentina. I'm a big fan of your video series, and these are one of the main reasons I became premium member. Thanks, Christoph87. I'm a d4 player, and I'm wondering if you can make a recommendation to play with white against what I know is the Indo-Benoni. Never heard that name, but maybe that's what they call it, I don't know. Key part of the system, unlike the Benoni, is that black retards e6 and focuses all of his efforts on playing b5 and obtaining counter play in the queen side, on the queen side. I usually get it, play quick f4 and then e5, but I enter in complex positions where I get lost. Keep up the good work. Yeah. Do I have anything clever to say there? Probably not overly clever, but I have some opinions. So d4, knight f6, c4, c5. As we've touched upon, more often than not I play knight f3, so I don't end up in these positions all that often. But let's say, I'm not sure if I got the move order right. Well, in this position here, what I would do is play this h3 move, which is always nice, just in general, to stop bishop g4, castles, knight to f3, and most black players here play e6 anyway once they get here. Then the difference is after bishop d3, ed, cd5 leads to a theory position in the modern Benoni, but here white has the extra option of ed5, which I believe is quite good. It's good structurally, and also the theory seems to be in white's favor. There's some weird stuff here like this, but I believe this is better for white. So that's what I would do. And if black doesn't play e6, but yeah, that's whatever. a6, you go a4, just stopping b5, and then Yeah, let them do whatever they want. You get your pieces out, go bishop d3, castles, rook to e1, bishop to f4. If black wastes too much time, like some guys like playing, I don't know, weird stuff like this, you just ignore whatever they're doing and slowly prepare e5. By piece play, here e5 would already be a pretty serious threat. Or queen d2, bishop h6. And white is just better, since black chose not to fight for the center, and it takes black a million moves to prepare b5. So, yeah, do that. And enjoy life. Wow, GM Donald Trump became premium. Well, if anybody can afford a premium membership, it should be Donald Trump. So you can ask a question on the next show. But since you made all the effort, I'll read your comment. Found an improvement in one of my Vienna lines. That's very possible. Let me know. And yeah, Latvian Gambit is not a great opening. R.N. Lafferty is saying, "Hi Jan, I just finished watching Sopiko's series on the Triangle Slav. Great series. But I was just wondering, I encountered a line that she didn't cover in that series. The line is as follows: d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c6, and 4 bishop f4. Yeah, that's a little trick line. I used to play that in Blitz. Yep. Queen f3, and so on and so forth. Sorry, I'm not going to read it all out, but I got the problem, since I know that problem. It's not really a problem, though. So let's get to it. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c6, bishop f4. Yeah, that's a bit of a trick line, but it's not that great. dc4, a4. The one trick is the one you mentioned. Bishop b4 is not good because of the e3. Well, here queen d5 is better, but it's also a little suspect. After e3, b5 loses because of this queen f3, queen d5, queen g3 thingy. By the way, I switched the engine off to calm down the system, so ignore the engine bar. Just listen to what I say. I'm unplugged, or maybe don't listen. Very confusing. Tough choices, but here you're in trouble because b8 and g7 are both hanging and white is more or less winning. What you should do is instead not play bishop b4, but use the fact that white has played bishop f4 and a4, which don't fit into all the systems. And after knight f6, e3, the most dynamic way to play is b5, return the pawn, but win some time to get the pieces out. Bishop b4 check, knight c3, knight d5. This is the key move, sort of a double attack. And yeah, this position is more or less equal. There's some more, I'm not sure if we can call it theory, some more moves could be looked at. But they don't really lead to a white advantage at all. So I believe that's what people do. An alternative, if this b5 is too weird for you, you can just go knight d5, grab this bishop and play that position, which should also be alright. But yeah, don't blunder that queen f3 trick, as you pointed out. That is the main thingy. A lot of praise from GM Donald Trump. Thanks, man. And yeah, I'll pass on the praise for Colin. I agree, he's a great writer. Check out our news section. He's doing good stuff. Well, I'm doing great stuff, like clicking on my little website link, and it only takes 5 minutes for us to get there. So it's a really exciting show. I can use all my improv skills to fill the breaks so they're not like awkward and me looking annoyed and waiting. Come on, why doesn't this work? How hard can it be? It has always worked. Why not today? Like, that'd be terrible. But I listen to a lot of Comedy Bang Bang, so I'm well prepared to fill these little breaks with humor and joy and excitement. And complaining about not wearing a tie. Or just saying nothing. I'll mentally prepare for the next question. Or I could just read it out and stop switching. If switching doesn't work. Kalashnikov is saying, "Hi Jan, what do you recommend for a Grunfeld player with black? After knight f3, knight f6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, castles, c4, c6, b3, d5, bishop b2. I've seen that Aronian played it in Norway chess against Carlson. Here we are. But I don't like Carlson's continuation with DC, BC and C5, because here I see no clear plan for black. Thanks for help. Yeah, that's a tricky-ish line. As usual, there is a lot of move order subtleties that go into getting to that position. So in the move order you gave, how do we get there? Knight f3, knight f6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, castles. First of all, most Grunfeld players would go d5 here before castles. But it doesn't matter for our purposes so much. Castles, c4, c6, b3. Here I wouldn't go d5. In the game, Carlson didn't have that chance, but in this position you're supposed to go knight e4 to not allow bishop b2 without provoking d4. And after knight e4, d4, play d5. Which is a position, I'm not saying this is solving all of black's problems, but this is a bit easier to play, and then you get your pieces out somehow. So I would prefer that if you want to play with c6, d5. As mentioned, I would also go for an earlier d5, which gives you some added options after c4. You can sometimes take if you so choose, or you can even go very ambitious and play d5, d4. And yeah, if you end up in this position after bishop b2, yeah, the stuff DC, BC, c5 I also didn't find so inspiring. I was doing live commentary with the great expert Peter Svidler during the game, and Svidler said that he thought the plan with b6, bishop b7, knight d7 was kind of playable. I haven't looked at it in great detail. In general, I wouldn't want to allow white to get this. In the game, Carlson allowed it because he was a bit bamboozled by Aronian's move order. This was the move order. And here he didn't feel like having a theory discussion after d takes c4 or bishop g4 because he was surprised. And he tried to go for something else and he went for g6. But now white can be sneaky and start with b3. And after bishop g7, you don't have to castle allowing this knight e4. But you can start with bishop b2. And there's no more knight e4. But normally white is not supposed to get this. Normally, like throws in knight e4, d4, and plays that position. What is the next question? That is the question. And once again, Mr. Normal Name is saying, "Hi Jan, what is the best way to approach learning a new repertoire? Thanks, Theo." Yeah, I've talked a bit about this before. It's tricky. I don't mind starting with a good book. I just don't read many books, so I'm not so much up to date. I believe a lot of our video series are offering quite good repertoire starting points, especially for black, whatever floats your boat, like Robin's King's Indian, or Taimanov, or Svidler's Grunfeld, or my boring stuff against d4. There is many choices, and I believe that's a pretty good starting point. It's tougher with white, and yeah, that's also why there's a little less material on the side, because I think with white you gotta be more flexible and adjust to your opponent, and it's very hard to have a set repertoire, at least. That's, yeah, how it gets at the higher levels. I'm not sure how to do it. Like, I think it's like building a library. Just start doing your own files on openings, whatever you're interested in. The King's Indian mainline with bishop e2, e5, castles, knight c6, d5, knight e7, b4. Just, yeah, put it into your computer, check out some recent games, put them in the file, save it, and then when it comes up, look at it again. But I don't know, there's no shortcuts. Like, I used to read a lot of chess books, but especially opening books. Maybe I should do it a bit more, but I'm not doing it that much. I've watched some of our video series, or I click through the moves, but for me it's more about getting quick information, and I don't really believe this process of building a complete repertoire with white. One common advice here, which I've also mentioned earlier, is find a hero, find someone who plays like you want to play, wherever you like how Kramnik plays with white, or Anand, or Nakamura, or whomever, and choose like some of their systems, and then, yeah, look at them with databases, with books, with video series, with whatever you can get your hands on. I understand this, is not the speech I'm supposed to give, I should tell you. Watch this series, How to Build a Complete Repertoire. And it will tell you everything, but chess is in flux all the time. Amphicoelius? Sorry if I mispronounced that. Hi Jan, insert praise here. No, I want to read your praise. Too lazy to insert it. My UCF rating is 1871 and I play the Taimanov as my primary defense to 1e4. No complaints about that. Long line. With my stockfish at some difficulties finding a good move for black here, but Watson in his Taimanov book also gives the option of an early h5 after h3 as a radical alternative, which he believes is good in practical play. My engines don't think much of it, but what do you think of the early h5 in the Taimanov English attack? And if you don't think they're any good, do you have any recommendation in the line I gave above? Not sure. I'm not a big Taimanov expert, so I will defer to our boy Mr. Van Kempen, who did a video series on Chess24 about the Taimanov, which I'm guessing you've already seen, but I checked it and I believe... How did I get there? Is this the right move order? Is this the position? Sorry if I screwed up the move order, but I believe Robin gave b5 before castles. When, as I said, I'm not much into the subtleties, but there were differences after g4 here. He wanted to take on d4, and that's his repertoire. When, once again, I trust Robin's repertoire choices normally, so you might want to look into that without this castles thrown in. As for the h5 lines, it's a general trend to, throw in h5 and all kinds of Sicilians to stop g4. I don't play Sicilian regularly enough to know if it's, or I don't have a good feel if it's good or bad, but it certainly makes life a bit harder for white players who are in caveman mode. They want to play their English attack, want to play g4. Well, after h5 they have to find a new plan. Drawbacks are obvious too. You can't really castle kingside anymore anytime soon, and you almost never want to castle queenside in the Sicilian, so you gotta live with your king in the center. My guess would be that objectively it's not gonna solve problems for all time, but it could confuse white players, so I sort of agree with decent practical choice. But once again, I lack expertise here for a bit. For a bit? I lack English skills here for a bit too. And it seems like there was a big theory battle today in the Caruana Hare Krishna game in Shamkir in the Taimanov. So check that out. How did it end, by the way? Was it a draw? Thought Harry was fine out of the opening, but then he started messing around a bit. Jan. I play the QGD as white and black. As white, I like the exchange with bishop d3, queen c2, knight g2, and long castles. Or one can play f3 and castle kingside. Any preferences? Both good. I'd prefer castling kingside most of the time, but that's more of a question of style. I'm less comfortable in pawn races with kings on opposite sides. So if you can get that, then I prefer the bishop d3, knight e2, short castles, f3, rook to e1, whatever. Slowly preparing e4 plan. There were some concrete questions along the way when I was talking about earlier this e3 bishop f5 line, and I think we got another Queen's Gambit decline question about some knight h5 later on. So both these plans are fine, I believe. I believe they're both supposed to be better for white. I'd go with the short castles, but that's mainly a stylistic choice. Wallace Shawn saying, "Hi Jan, what do you think about this queen sacrifice in the Grunfeld?" I gotta admit, I wanted to prepare for this question, but somehow I overlooked it earlier. So I'm gonna have to wing it. So let's think. e4, knight a6, bishop e2, c5, bishop g5 takes. Okay, got it. This has been played once or twice, right? Let's bring it up on the board. As I said, I feel a bit bad because I didn't look this up from reading what you wrote, this position with the queen down looks more or less equal to me. So that should be possible, but I have somewhere in the back of my head that there's supposed to be a bit of a problem with this line. I'm sorry, the screen looks broken again, but it looks like the switching has improved now. I'm not sure what it is. I guess rook d1 here is more critical than bishop g5. Because this position, how did it go? Takes rook d8, knight e2, queen e2, rook takes d8. I have a feeling black should be okay here. I don't know theory. I'm guessing it becomes sharp, queen e7, bishop e6, queen b7, or whatnot. But it feels like there should be enough compensation. Rook b8, queen a7, rook b2. Yeah, I would have to study it in some more depth, but in general, such a position, yeah, I think should be fine for black. And I believe, but this is, vague memory, because sorry, I didn't prepare for that one, that rook d1 is a more critical test than bishop g5. And what's theory? b6, bishop g5, stuff like this. It's been a long time since I've looked at these knight a6 lines, so I'm really not up to date, but I thought this was probably a more critical test than bishop g5, where I think the queen sacrifice you've given should be alright. But once again, many disclaimers, lack expertise, didn't look it up, all that bad stuff. Thanks for the question though, and it's certainly an interesting line. I should study the Grunfeld more. It's always on my to-do list, but never find the time. So much TV to watch. Come on. No, this switch it doesn't like much. So once again, I'll prepare mentally for the next question. By Lapus Neanul. Hi Jan, with white I usually play 1 c4, 2 g3 against pretty much anything, but recently I've been thinking about expanding my repertoire to include 1 out of 3. That's always a good idea, so as to have more flexibility in my choice of lines. Mainline King's Indian is something I'd like to try. However, I don't know what to play against Queen's Indian setups, which I've been avoiding until now using my 2 g3 move order. One interesting option I found is knight f3, knight f6, c4, e6, g3, and so on, 7 rook e1, reaching this position, which I'll get to once I'm allowed to switch. It can only take hours. Not sure I should read this out without you guys being able to see the board, but I do agree with most of Lapus Neanul's points. Once we can get a board, we're gonna look at it. Here we are. But there's some complaints. So I hope things are still smooth. As usual, apologies for technical stuff. I have no idea what's going on. How do we get to your position? Let's say like this. Yeah, I fully agree. I always thought 94 was the most annoying move here. And this is supposed to be the main line, but after c5 it's just equal. Like, you can try some small things here, but I don't think there is anything special. And I'm not sure what the alternative is. Like d4 looks a bit strange. It might be a better try, because c5, d5 looks nice. I'm not sure. Bishop e4. Not very booked up here, but at least you have some plans. But this line is a problem. And possibly, I screwed up the move or a bit. Doesn't really matter. Possibly enough of a problem that you might want to go d4 here, knight e4, bishop d2. Play one of those lines, but I understand that's not all that exciting. So, yeah, I share your worries. I'm not sure there's all that much to do about it. It's just a good move. Now, some guys go d4 here, right? I've never trusted that, but it's possible. But no, I could never solve that problem, and I was always surprised why people don't go for knight e4 more often, which, yeah, I fully agree. I think it's a good move. So, sorry. Oh, why did I do that? Never switch to general. Because the next switch is going to take forever. Breaker 90 is saying, I'm planning to keep my two main defenses for 1 e4 and d4. To keep two main defenses for 1 e4 and 1 d4 each. Very ambitious, Breaker 9. I have 3 options for both moves. Which 2 of the 3 should I keep in my repertoire? Against e4, Sicilian, Ruy Lopez, Caro-Kann. Suggest 2. Against d4, Semi-Slav, Grunfeld, King's Indian. Suggest 2. Or should I learn all 3 for both opening moves? Nah, 2 is fine. Alright, since I can choose, I'm gonna go with Sicilian and Ruy Lopez. They tend to complement each other well. And against d4, matter of taste, but it's gonna sound strange because I play Semi-Slav and Grunfeld and I would never play King's Indian, but Semi-Slav and Grunfeld are both sort of similar in style and theoretically enforcing, but King's Indian is nice to have in there to play for a win. Or to play weird positions. I would just never do it because I don't like it at all. So I don't know. Maybe Grunfeld and King's Indian. Then you get used to having your bishop over there. Even though they're very different in character. I don't know. But yeah, it looks like you have your work cut out. And as long as you choose main lines, can't go wrong with any of them. It's just a question of style. You gotta figure out if you enjoy playing King's Indian or if you hate it. Can't tell you that. CB Einstein is saying, Hi Jan, playing with the black pieces. I have trouble with the London system. Yeah, it's getting popular, isn't it? I still don't respect it, but I might have to one day. I figured out a line with queen b6 or b6. Looks like you like the b6 square. There's d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, because I am a Nimzo-Indian player. Well, against knight f3 you can still go d5 and still be a Nimzo-Indian player. Anyway. Bishop f4, c5, e3, queen b6 or b6. Could you explain me all the variations in that? Or would you suggest me to choose a different approach against the London? Thanks in advance. Do I have any opinion? Not sure I do. I'm mainly concerned about this switching. Why is this thing so stubborn today? Here we are. Go to London system. Yeah, as I mentioned, in passing, I normally go d5. I think it's a lot less scary. After d5, but of course that's a repertoire question. If you're a Queen's Indian player, you normally don't want to go d5 there. Bishop f4, c5, e3. And here in this position, queen b6 is supposed to be a little dubious, right? Queen b6, knight c3, and I don't think you're in time to take here because of knight b5. So queen b6, if you're not really targeting this pawn, it doesn't make that much sense to me. But b6 is fine. And yeah, it depends how white wants to arrange his forces. Normally they play some variation of these moves. Oh no, sorry, don't go bishop b7 yet. Keep the bishop on c8 for now. I think it's more flexible. Something like this. And yeah, what I thought makes sense. Like you can go bishop b7. But I thought it made sense to... I should be more clear. To keep the option of bishop a6 open. And ideally you want to wait till this bishop has moved. So if white plays a standard setup here, you can start with a move like d6, and after bishop d3 you can go bishop a6, which I thought was quite playable, and it makes sense strategically to get rid of these bishops, as far as I can tell. Therefore, yeah, that's probably what I would choose if I were to end up in this situation. But, of course, there is many other choices. Currently, the most popular is to go all caveman, go d5, knight c6, bishop d6, play that position. That seems to be the favorite approach at the top. And people seem to feel that after b6, white has some chances for an opening advantage. Queen b6 in this move order doesn't strike me as great. Sorry, after c5, e3. Because of either knight a3 or knight c3. And yeah, it looks like you can't take on b2. So I would not do that. A lot of discussion in the chat. Sorry, I can't really keep up with it. I got my hands full with all these questions. And I'm also going to be kicked out of the studio soon because our boy Pepe Cuenca is going to do his Spanish Banter Blitz show, which, even if you don't understand Spanish, is worth watching because he's a bit more active than me, I would say. I'm going to start reading out the next question, which I'm sure we will be able to see eventually. Sanat Singal number 3 is saying, "Hey Jan, I'm a young e4 player and I started playing chess a year ago and have been playing e4 till now. From then on I've learned that I'm a positional player and my tactics and calculation are pretty weak. Do you think I should continue to play e4 or switch to more positional lines? Also I have like 2-3 hours of chess per day, so how much time do you think I should spend on it? Do you think opening preparation is important at my level? Thanks a lot." So you played chess for a year. First of all, it's normal that your tactics and calculations aren't great yet. I think you should work on that. Like, have you 2-3 hours, spend an hour doing whatever, the tactics trainer on Chess24 or doing other tactics exercises. And those will improve. Also just play a lot. I don't think opening preparation is that important. Then again, I'm an opening nerd and I've always studied the openings even when I started playing. And I have somehow managed to improve along the way. So I'm not very experienced with it, but I certainly don't think you should switch your first move. In general, I don't think e4 is that much more tactical than d4 or vice versa. Depends on the lines you choose, and you can, with a bit more experience, build your repertoire a lot around lines that you're comfortable with, and that should be very much possible in one e4 just as it is in one d4. So no reason to switch. I do think openings matter a bit, and it's one way to approach the game and to learn about structures and so on, but in general, yeah, it's too early to decide. I'm a positional player, I can't calculate, so I'm gonna play whatever, knight f3, g3. Stick with e4, work on your openings, work on your tactics, play as much as you can, and you're gonna improve. Hang in there. Nobody's born world champion. And our boy Pramod is chiming in, Pramod NVS, with his usual abstract question, I'm guessing. Let's see. "Hi Jan, congrats and keep up your good work on C24. Wonder you have some new TV series recommendations to watch." No, I didn't watch that much TV. It's NBA playoffs time. That tends to occupy my free time, so I haven't watched that many shows. I've recommended Rick and Morty, but I'm not sure it's your cup of tea, Pramod. It's a little weird. What else? Nah, sorry, not so up to date on TV stuff. Coming to chess, I've been struggling to play against the London system where they place knight e5 and get to a better endgame where I have to defend forever. And I followed your Vienna series and liked it a lot, thanks. Considering the concrete variations are so entertaining. As usual, I struggle following Pramod's train of thought, but I'll hang in there. This is all a setup for the question that's coming now. Will you please suggest how I can play against those knight f3, g3, bishop g2 lines by white, where it seems pretty hard to come up with sharp lines with black? Thank you. I'm very confused, but I will take away the knight f3, g3, bishop g2 part. And yeah, that is 3 moves where white hasn't given a lot of targets yet, so it's hard to checkmate him. In line with my repertoire series would be to play e6, castles, bishop e7. That's in line with the repertoire. I've been suggesting also the Catalan repertoire, but I will admit the board is not exactly on fire, but I believe that is a sound way to play. When after d4 we're back in Catalan territory, well, this d3, knight bd2, e4, king's Indian attack can get quite sharp, but I believe black is perfectly fine there. Another line I have sympathy for, which I've mentioned before as well, is this stuff. When if white castles, black goes e5 and is supposed to be fine. Well, if they go d4, black goes knight f6 or c6 first, and you get some sort of symmetrical Grunfeld hybrid, but I think is also quite playable. If you want to spice things up, yeah, it depends on your repertoire. Could play one c5 and after g3, whatever, knight c6, bishop g2, e5, stuff like that, I'm sure is possible. Then knight e7, g6, bishop g7. But yeah, it depends on your style. It's hard to enter force variations if we don't know what white is gonna do yet. For my repertoire, I go d5, knight f6, e6. What's going on in the chat? A lot of stuff. But yeah, I should probably speed up. Pratik 2911 saying, "Hey Jan, I played the exchange variation in the French defense with the white pieces against a high-rated player in a tournament. I arrived at this position after a few moves. Could you please tell me how white can continue from this position?" Come on, Pratik, that's not an opening question. That's a thinly veiled brag that you got a good position against a strong player. Congratulations. But yeah, I would bet quite some amounts that you're not gonna see this position again anytime soon. But still, I will answer the question if I manage to bring up my little chessboard. If not, we can do a blindfold. Knight a4 is very strong here. Bishop d6 is forced, then knight to c5, bishop c5, dc5, and you're much better positionally. For knight a4, bishop d6, there could even... let's put it on the board, why not? Have to reconstruct how you got there, I'm not quite sure. Looks like this strong player went a bit overboard at some point. So yeah, we have your position, which, yeah, I don't think you're gonna see again, but knight a4 is very good for white. Can't take because of knight c5, bishop d6, either knight c5 or knight e5 if we wanna play very tactically, are both favoring white. And I know that because I did switch on the engine, which you can also do. Enter the game in the analysis tab on Chess24. Ask what the computer says and it will give you the same answer. Anyway, congratulations on getting this nice position against a strong player. What else we got? Achilethista 3000 is saying, "Hi Jan, after d4, d5, I think I'm gonna..." Nah, I'm not gonna. After d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, e3, knight b7, bishop d3, dc4, bishop takes c4, b5, bishop d3, bishop b7. I've been struggling to find an advantage for white. You're not alone. It's mainline theory and probably black is fine if he knows his stuff, but I would like some ideas to pose black problems. Thanks in advance. I would like some ideas too. Yeah, that's a mainline theory position. One I've played a lot. I'm not sure, maybe you've seen my video on, what was it called? Thailand Opening Clinic special on my play in the Bangkok Open. There I had like 3 games where that stuff was featured to some extent. So I guess I've shared most of my wisdom there. Short answer, yeah, I don't have any ideas to make black's life miserable. There's 3 main lines here, as I'm sure you know. E4, B4, knight A4, C5, E5, knight D5. Castles is one of them. It's supposed to be fine for black. I normally play A3 here, which leads to a slower positional game. The main line is bishop D6, castles, queen C2. Here rook C8 is a trendy move, as I've said. I talked a lot about this in this other opening clinic special. But yeah, that's where I normally go, trying to make it a game. And the third option is to castle A6, E4, C5, D5, where currently black is supposed to be fine theoretically. So yeah, I tend to go A3, but of course it's a lot of theory after both B4 and bishop D6, and I can't promise an opening advantage. Such is life. But yeah, check out the opening special clinic, whatever it's called. Korfitsufeld, sorry for horribly bungling that name, is saying in the QGD exchange line. People like saying QGD, like for Queen's Gambit declined. D4, D5, C4, E6, Knight C3, Knight F6, CD, ED, Bishop G5, C6, E3, Bishop E7, Bishop D3, Knight BD7, 8, Knight G2. Is Knight H5 plan still sort of okay for black here, with or without H6 thrown in? And yeah, I think the Knight H5 plan is better. Now we made it there, but I'm just about to switch back. I think the Knight H5 plan is better with the white queen already on C2. So in the line you've given, let's see where I have it. C, D, E, D, Bishop G5, C6, E3. No, not this. Let's say here. Bishop D3, Bishop E7, Knight E2. Here, if Knight H5. I don't know. First of all, I think the plan with just playing short castles, and since his queen is still here, you put it on D2, then you go Rook A1 and F3 and E4. Should favor white a bit. In this position, without H6, I think at least that this plan is also quite good for white. You go G4, Knight G3, and grab some space here. Well, with H6, that's probably a bit less effective, so here I would go for the other plan I just mentioned with castles, Queen D2, Rook A1, and I would guess white is a bit better. So yeah, it's one of the reasons I'm having some repertoire issues here, because I was relying on Bishop F5, but evil Carlson put some heavy blow to this repertoire recently in Norway chess. So, no, the line you're saying, they're playable, but I don't like them so much, and if I ended up in this position, I would probably do something else with black. Knight F8 is a move I have some sympathy for, trying to go Knight E6 very quickly, now that a white knight can no longer end up on E5. So that's probably what I would do. Maybe not. Huchyoch is wondering, playing with the black pieces, what's the best reply to the Ayechin Chatar variation? Thanks in advance. That is the French. Here's a question, but we're going back already. So, never played the French in my life, therefore might not have the most qualified opinion, but I do follow chess games, and I did notice that recently, I think they've concluded takes is no good, and they decided, you know what, you want to throw in H4, H6, we don't really care. People just go H6, and after takes, they play pretty standard French stuff. Well, probably start with A6 in order not to allow Knight B5. And then go C5, Knight C6, and it's unclear who is favored by this inclusion of H4, H6. I think that's what they do. I think they have good reasons to do so, but I will probably never have that position on the board with either color, so I'm not that sure. Still, I believe Ho Yifan at some games here looked quite playable. To me. What else we got? Boom. Maybe if I... Never mind. Superfishy24 is saying, hi Jan, what do you think is the best line against Rossolimo? E4, C5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop B5. Big question. Check out Mr. Van Kempen's recent video series on the Rossolimo. I'm sure he can give you a lot more detail than I can. I've done different things. It's such a major line. But yeah, I've done everything, depending on what I felt like at the time. Well, everything is a bit of a stretch. I've played games with E6 when, of course, white has hundreds of different lines with bishop takes C6 or with short castles. I've played this E6, Knight G7 stuff. Currently the trend is going back to G6 a little bit. When people were a bit tired, I thought of these bishop c6 DC positions, where white is probably a little better. And now they're coming back to playing this BC stuff. Castles, bishop g7, rook e1, knight h6, c3 castles. When it seems like black is fine after d4 takes and d5. I have to admit, I haven't watched Robin's series on the Rossolimo yet, so you probably want to check that out and he can give you a lot more detail. But I had the feeling this was a line worth investigating from the black point of view. I haven't really done it yet, but probably if I were to play the Rossolimo tomorrow, I would prepare this line. But I keep changing my mind. I think both e6 and g6 are full-fledged playable main lines. How much more time do we have? Not much, so I'll rush through as many questions as I can. But apologies to everybody whom I didn't get to in advance. Oscar Shales is saying, "Hi Jan, I'm a d4 player and I struggle against the Albin counter gambit. Sorry to hear that. d4, d5, c4, e5. What is the best way not to get crushed right out of the opening, but to have an opening advantage? Thanks and keep up the good work." Thank you, I shall try. Yeah, the Albin counter gambit is, of course, not a very good gambit, but if it scares you, you can always play knight f3. That stops it quite efficiently. I don't know, it's another one of those. I've prepared for it occasionally if someone's done it. I think knight bd2 is probably the most flexible, where you're not committing to g3 or a3 yet. And as far as I know, why it's better in all the lines, knight g7, knight b3, targeting this dude is good for white, knight f5, even e4 is a pleasant endgame. What do? I guess they go here, and now I think I was going, or they were going a3, knight e7, knight b3 with also a better position. So, yeah, it's not a very good opening. Bishop g4, I guess, is also a move when I would, once again, play a3 and a quick b4, keeping the option to go h3, g4, bishop g2. It's not correct, and knight bd2, I think is a good move, but so is a3 or g3. If it worries you, then you can start with 2 knight f3. Leclue is saying, "Hey Jan, as a 1d4 player, I like to play with c4, knight c3 and h4, h5 against the Leningrad Dutch. But what can I do against d4, f5, c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6 when black is aiming for a stonewall setup? Could you make some recommendation to get an interesting position with white and recommend some expert GMs for model games?" You're asking too much, Leclue. Use the database, throw that position in there, and I'm sure you will get lots of model games. As mentioned, you can use the database right here on Chess24. There's like 7 million games in there. But yeah, I've faced that, I wouldn't call it problem, but that thought. Thing is, normally Leningrad players, they're not really stonewall players. So depending on if your opponent is a stonewall player or a Leningrad player, you can more or less adjust your repertoire. Here, g6, h4, I agree, it's an interesting line. And e6, I would go knight f3, and d5 is not very good yet because of bishop f4 or c6. So they sort of have to go bishop b4 to be consistent. This is playable here with white, I guess. I'd play queen b3, because I don't want to allow the double pawns. Then a5, let's say g3. When white is not exactly winning, but certainly a playable position. Oops, not b5 probably. They normally do something like b6, bishop g2, bishop b7, castles, whatever, knight b5 I think is a move. So yeah, this might not be much in your caveman style if you normally want to go h4, h5, but that's what I would do if I ended up there. Hope that helped. I'm afraid it didn't. Sorry, man. Come on. Second best move is saying, but we've talked about this plenty already today. Yeah, it's a problem, this Carlson-Kramnik game. Nick 4. Hello, Jan. In the line e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop b5, check, knight d7, castles, knight f6, rook e1, a6, bishop d3, b5, c3 was someday fashionable at the highest level. Why isn't it anymore? Do you think it is a sound mind weapon for white against this black setup? Thanks and keep going. Sounds like a mainline-ish line. Can't be anything too wrong with it, I guess. I'm not sure if it fell out of fashion, but how do we get there? c5, knight f3, d6, no, bishop b5, knight d7. I think the more trendy move is c4 instead of c3, right? Which is a bit more direct, and there were these funky games with c4, g5, like Carlson-Kramnik and Carlson-Topalov. I guess the discussions are more focused on this, where I would guess white has good chances to gain an opening advantage, but of course it's messy. I'm not aware of anything wrong with c3. It gives black sort of a broader choice. If you want to play e5 here, or rook c8, or e6 or g6. I'm more of a Spanish player, so I play e5 here because the structure looks sound to me. But a lot of guys play rook c8 as well, a4, b4, a5. In general, yeah, you can play this. There's no problem with it. It leads to a complicated position with all pieces on the board. And probably chances for a tiny opening advantage. I think guys are just more interested in c4 than c3 at the moment. But I don't really see anything wrong with it. Flinsbacher saying, "Hello Jan, in former times a line, I think it was called Life or Death, long French Wiener line, was very popular, but it's rarely seen nowadays. Is it refuted for white or black, or does it give a clear advantage for one side?" I don't know, never played the French, but no, I know a little bit. So let's get to it. I don't think it's refuted, but as usual, there's many details. Oops, no, let's go here, especially, oops. Sorry, bishop b4, e5, c5. First of all, yeah, I don't think castles has been refuted. But in this line, knight bc6, f4, bishop d7 is a bit out of fashion. These queen d3, d takes c. I believe white is supposed to be better after just knight takes c3 or even queen takes c3, a6, knight back. Black has been struggling here. So what black players have started to do is to go dc, queen d3, d4 immediately. And here, as far as I know, the theoretical debates are still ongoing. After knight takes d4, black can hold or not here. Black is certainly not supposed to be better in all of these lines. It's more, yeah, that it's considered a bit too risky and too vulnerable to computer programs. But as far as I know, the debate isn't over, especially in these d4 lines instead of bishop d7. White is supposed to be a bit better, but not like unplayable better. But yeah, I've never played the French, so I'm not so much up to date with what the status is here with castle instead of queen c7. At some point, that was all the rage and sort of replaced the older lines. Do we have more questions? I got like 5 more minutes. Hurry up. Yoga Nidra. It feels like people play b3 on all levels these days. As a non-e4 player, I don't feel comfortable with e5. What would you recommend then? Play one d4. That stops e5 pretty effectively, and you don't have to play one e4. If you want to stick with b3 though, because the usual story is you don't want to spend that much time learning theory and your opponents are all booked up to the eyeballs in the Najdorf and the King's Indian. Therefore, you have to play b3. There is no other way. But then you're annoyed if they occupy the center. But yeah, the main line here nowadays is this stuff. I think d5 is quite playable too. But this stuff, bishop b5, bishop d6, where white is not better, but it's playable. You go knight e2, castles, castles. They normally go rook e8. Whenever they go a6, you take on c6. If they don't, you keep making moves. And then, yeah, let's say a6, you take, and you play it slow. d3, knight d2, maybe f4. It's playable for white. It's like one of these bishop takes c6 Sicilians. We haven't played e4. And yeah, nothing wrong with it. b3 is not a bad move. I don't think it's the most challenging move either. But yeah, it doesn't control the center, so you can't stop them from going e5. Sorry. Nick 4? Yeah, I got you. Why are you saying? Black players always seem to get away with the elephant gambit. That's literally the first time I've heard that. E4, E5, knight of 3, D5. Yeah, everybody always gets away with that. ED, bishop D6, D4, E4, knight E5, knight of 6, and bishop B5 is the main theory. Is there something else here? Or what would you play? I don't know. I'd play any move. If they gave me that position after 5 moves, I'd be very, very delighted. So, translation. I'm at my most condescending already because the show is reaching its final stage. But I do not believe in the soundness of... I didn't know it was called the elephant gambit. I thought it was... Well, the central gambit looks like we're pawn up, right? I've never looked at it. So C4 looks like a good move. Knight C3 looks like a good move. Bishop B5 check also looks like a good move. They go bishop D7, I guess. I don't know what they do. Takes, C4. Pawn up. Still pawn up. 2 pawns up, but we're gonna lose this. But we're gonna be 1 pawn up, which is great. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's many refutations, but I'd be happy with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to be that condescending, but yeah, 2 D5 can't be a good move. Black is not ready for that. You want something in return for giving a pawn normally, like a lead in development or control of the center, something like that. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Outremer. Hey Jan, in the knight of the following position can arise. 8 queen f3. What do you think is a better way to play for black? With or without an early h6? Example, without h6. Example, with h6. I think the best way to play for black is to grab the pawn on b2 with h6. But that's probably a different story, slightly. Yeah, as mentioned, I think this is the way to go, but of course it's a lot of weird theory. So knight b7, queen f3. I don't know, I thought these lines, queen c7, how does it go? Long castles, b5, g4. I thought this was supposed to be... I think I forgot to throw in bishop e7. But I thought this stuff was supposed to be trouble for black these days without being fully up to date. But I thought it's not supposed to be very good. I guess I forgot something. What position do you normally get? This? Is this it? I don't know. Anyway, I thought this was problems. So, queen f3, let's say h6, bishop h4, bishop e7. Here there is this weird fashionable move, bishop e2, right? Trying to cash in on h6. Because in some strange line in the distant future, that made a difference. That this g6 square is weakened. Something. All of this is computerish, but I just saw some game. Robson against Le Quang Liem, maybe. And as it often is with sharp lines, magically we get a boring endgame where black is trying to hold the draw. Pawn down, but decent drawing chances. But not as cute. And the whole reason for this is that we played h6 and weakened the g6 square. So, honestly, I don't know. Like, the only thing I know a bit about is this queen b6 line. I thought all the other lines are a little shaky. And therefore, yeah. Go after the pawn. Pawns are nice. Tasty. Then we have a very long question by Chucky is the best about a recent correspondence game of his. Since I'm in such time trouble, I will jump right to the position after h6. If I manage to jump back here. Oops, no, go here. Here we go. Yeah, never seen this. Makes some sense, of course, to stop all the pins. I was surprised you didn't mention bishop f4, which looks like a natural-ish developing move to meet d5 with c5. So that would enter my mind. Knight e2, yeah, it looks a bit passive, but I would also think about it. I don't mind your move bishop c2. I would have been concerned about d5 here, but yeah, I haven't looked at it much. cd, ed, maybe white is a little better. So yeah, bishop c2 is logical enough. Now after b6, I'm not sure how much you gain though. So yeah, and this is, yeah, without engine and without having thought about it for very long. But bishop f4 looks like a natural enough move to me. Just trying to hint at some knight b5s. If bishop c3, bc, feels like white should be a little better. So that's the first move that would enter my head. But I don't know. Bishop c2 makes sense to me as well. Yeah, I've never seen this h6. I'm guessing it's a playable sideline. Oh no, that was a mistake, as we know. Because now we're stuck here. What time is it? 19:03. Mr. Cuenca, I'm sure, is knocking at the door. Anxious to get his setup done. But I will answer like 2 more questions. If I'm not out here at 15. He's gonna be really, really mad. K. Lamar, 74, is asking about the position after g3, knight c6, bishop g2. Let's do this blindfold style. Yeah, you don't want to go g6 because of a later d4. You can either go d5, ed, ed, castles, knight f6, d4, bishop e7. That's how Vichy played against Carlson in their World Championship match, for example, which I thought was fine, but the move I prefer is the move knight to f6. For details, check out Robin's video series, as usual. I believe he gave knight f6 here as well in his Taimanov series when it came to dealing with sidelines. That's a bit more flexible and probably offers more winning chances. So knight f6 would be my choice. Kieran is saying, hi Jan, I like your series against d4 very much, thank you. What would be the more consistent of any approach against one knight f3 and one c4 for a follower of your proposed repertoire? I can tell you that much, if I can switch. That's the big question. Let's do a blindfold. If knight f3, you go d5. If they go to c4, then you go e6. Then if g3, knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7. And if d4, we are back in my repertoire. If they go 1 c4, you go e6. And that's where now I'm dealing with some problems, because I've talked about this during the show. My planned repertoire was to give this weird Queen's Gambit line, where I'm having some issues now. But e6 is most consistent with the repertoire, where most of the time you're going to transpose back to something. And here, yeah, depending if you want to play the Nimzo, then you have to learn this line additionally. Or if you want to play the Queen's Gambit declined, you want to choose 2 knight f6 or 2 d5. While against 1 knight f3, well, there's always some extra stuff. d5, there's g3, and yeah, as mentioned, most consistent with my repertoire would be to play this, so I'm probably gonna fill in those blanks one day. But I would quite often play g6 here, which is sort of its own line. Hope that helped. After 1 c4, I believe the best move is e5, and I often play c5. But once again, if we're trying to reach my territory, then e6 would be the most natural move to play. Okay, one more. Rendsburger. One question about the bishop c4, e6, g4 line. That's no good, Rendsburger. I'm so sorry. Or I'm not sure how sorry I am. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop c4, e6, g4. And Rendsburger explained in his question that the idea is to meet b5 with g5. I did do this evil thing here to switch on my computer, which, as mentioned, you guys can all do as well. Just enter it. And the computer says black is more or less winning after knight takes e4. So who am I to argue? This just looks bad for white. Knight e4, bc4. And bishop e6. Maybe knight c3 works, but just f e6, knight e4, d5, knight g3, e5 looks pretty horrible for white. So Yeah, unless I'm missing something devious. I think it's just a bad line, and b5, not the most surprising move in the world, is good for black. This probably also equalizes if we wanna get cute. But yeah, doesn't look like it works, Rendsburger. Logical nonsense is saying, more Najdorf questions. He's saying 7 knight b3, but I guess he means 6 knight b3, because that's the move Bartel had some success with. Yeah, it's not as dumb as it looks, because after e6 you want to go g4 in one go once again. And it's not so easy for black to come up with a move. The experts recently have been playing knight bd7, which looks quite clever. And after g4, they played h6, took a timeout to stop g5, bishop g2, and now b5. This is the big tactical point. The point is e5 doesn't really work here because of knight e5, bishop a8, bishop g4, and black is more or less winning. So you can't do that, and if you can't do that, then black will be in time to go bishop b7, threaten b4, and reach a comfortable version of whatever hybrid Sicilian that is. So it looks like currently knight bd7 is a trendy move. But yeah, kudos to Bartel for coming up with a counterintuitive move with some ideas in this very position. Alright, last question I can get to. Shark. Oh, sorry, I didn't address the K. Lamar part where it suggests to create a database. Sounds way too complicated for us, but I'll certainly pass it on. I quite like the idea too. Oh, Shark Foss, that's a huge question. So it's really gonna be the last, and I won't be able to do it justice because I'm gonna have to rush through it. The Queen's Indian. What do you do in the main line of main lines? Knight c3. This is the trendy stuff. Karjakin played d5 and held throughout the candidates, so he's probably a bigger expert than me. I also thought the structure after d5 cd was a bit better for white. Therefore, I thought castles is the main move here when e4 d5, as far as I know, is fine for black. So they either go rook c1, where theoretical debates are ongoing. d5, my style would be to play d5 and knight takes d5 here. White might be slightly better though. You can go ed and argue that rook c1 was not as useful as castles. And I'm not sure what everybody had prepared for the candidates. Normally rook c1 was a trendy move. If they go bishop g2 here, then black should be in time to go c6. And once again e4, d5. And if not, d5 next move. So that's my very unsophisticated knowledge. Karjakin is the world's biggest expert on this, and he's played d5 many a time during the candidates. So there's probably some reason for it. That's it for today. I gotta vacate the studio. Apologies to everybody whose question I did not get to. It's first come, first serve. And also apologies for, I end every show apologizing for the technical issues, weird stuff going on as usual. I hope you still enjoyed the show or learned something or got offended or, I don't know, I hope it gave you any emotional reaction. Because that's what chess is really about, all the emotion. Apologies to everybody in the chat I've ignored. Apologies to Pepe Cuenca, who will have like 2 minutes to set up his show properly. You should check that out and watch it. His Bente Blitz shows in Spanish are great. Even more emotion than this one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Later, traders. Bye-bye.